Thanks, Katie. For more information on this story and others, be sure to check out our website, news.wicb.org. Now let's head back over to Tucker Ives, who sat down with Rolling Stone writer Matt Taibbi last week.
So it seems like anytime I go online and look at the message boards or look at the letters to the editor, it seems like there are complaints about how Rolling Stone is getting too political and that they should be sticking to music. What is your reaction to that, and what is Rolling Stone's reaction?
You know, it's funny, when I was at the Exile, I remember I heard from a lot of reporters who said, you know, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing because you can't be ridiculous and serious at the same time, you know, because apparently people are too stupid to recognize the subtleties. I mean, if you're going to be a humorist, you have to be a humorist all the time. You have to be Mad Magazine, right? And if you're going to be a newspaper, you have to be a newspaper all the time. I don't think that it's really like that. I think people in general, they're funny one moment and they're serious the next moment, and we don't have any problem, telling the difference between those two. Rolling Stone is a privately owned magazine that is about music, but the interest in music has allowed the magazine to survive commercially and fund some of this investigative journalism, this different kind of alternative journalism that's been very, interesting and important in American culture in the last 30 or 40 years. I mean, Hunter Thompson's the best, writer that we've had in journalism, I think, and he came from our organization. So I think that kind of criticism is silly.
February 10th, 2007, Barack Obama announces his candidacy for the office of the president. At that point in time, did you think that he had a shot?
I predicted in 2004 that he would be a president someday, actually. I didn't know, I wasn't sure it was going to be this soon, but just by the standards that we judge politicians, I knew that he was going to be the quote-unquote best candidate, just because we tend to like guys who are warm, who have an appeal to people that's nonspecific and emotional and sort of wide-ranging. He was the kind of guy who wasn't going to have a lot of negatives, but was going to have a lot of positives. And I knew he was going to be a phenomenon pretty early on.
Are there any candidates that, if they won, you would have said, forget it, I'm done, and just get up and leave the country?
Well, I mean, I don't see how you could have done worse than George Bush, honestly. I mean, I remember talking to one of the reporters who covered him in 2000, and he was telling me the story about how Bush used to, he was afraid, I guess his handlers were afraid that he was being perceived as a lightweight intellectually, so they told him to carry a book around all the time so that people would think he was a reader. But he was so stupid that he didn't change the book. And so he carried around the same biography of Dean Acheson for like 9 months, and the reporters didn't even hound him about it. And this guy is just, it's funny, if you actually read Bush's history, he's not an entirely unsympathetic character just because you can understand his hang-ups with his dad and how upset he was that he wasn't taken seriously. But this guy had no business being in that office, and we somehow let it happen. So, no, after 2004, I just don't see how it could go. Well, I guess Sarah Palin would be a step down even from that. So, I don't know. We'll see. If she gets elected, maybe that might be it.
You talk a lot about the conservatives that really kind of anger you, from Sarah Palin to George Bush. Are there any liberals or people on the left that you really can't stand?
Well, I had a tough time with Hillary this time, but people like Mark Penn, who worked for Hillary, who's big wig for Burson Marsteller, which is like this evil PR firm. I think the difference between the right and the mainstream Democratic Party is that the right wing in this country, they're ideologues, especially the social conservatives, whereas the Democrats, the sort of mainstream Democrats, like the Clintonian people, like the Tom Dashells and the people in the DLC, they're cynics, basically. So I don't like the right-wing ideology, but the cynicism of those people who came up with the bankruptcy bill and who decided to vote for the Iraq War within the Democratic Party, I almost find that more offensive.
Well, Matt, I'd like to thank you for coming down and taking the time to sit down with us. Matt Taibbi is the chief political reporter for Rolling Stone magazine. His latest book, The Great Derangement, is on bookshelves now. For Now Hear This, I'm Tucker Ives.
Thanks again, Tucker.